The city was alive under the bright afternoon sun. Cars honked, people rushed along the sidewalks, and every corner of the street seemed to vibrate with energy. But high above all that noise, on the rooftop cafe of one of the city's finest hotels, the world felt unnaturally quiet, peaceful, almost too peaceful, as if something terrible was hiding inside the stillness. Lorenzo Di Marco sat at a small table near the glass railing, looking like a man who owned everything the light touched. Dark suit, gold cufflinks, sunglasses that reflected the entire skyline. A man who lived above danger, above fear, above consequences. A man who believed nothing and no one could touch him. Across from him sat Bianca, long hair, red lipstick, and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She leaned forward, her fingers sliding gently across the back of Lorenzo's hand. "You're distracted," she teased softly. Lorenzo smirked. "Not anymore." Bianca laughed, brushing her hair behind her ear, knowing she had his full attention. But she didn't, because on the table, vibrating again and again, was his phone, the name lighting up the screen. Elena. His jaw tightened. The vibration felt louder than the entire city below. Bianca glanced at the phone. She again? Her tone carried amusement, irritation, and curiosity all at once. Lorenzo flipped the phone face down. "She knows not to bother me during the day." But the truth was sharper than his lie. He knew Elena never called this many times unless something was wrong. He could feel it, a pull in his chest, a whisper of instinct he didn't want to acknowledge. Bianca leaned across the table, placing her hand on his cheek. "Then ignore her," she said with a seductive grin. "Stay with me." And he did. He leaned in, their lips closed, his attention shifting completely to her, while across the city, Elena ran for her life. Down in the crowded marketplace, Elena clutched her phone with trembling hands. Her breaths came in uneven gasps. Her hair stuck to her face with sweat, and her legs felt like they were about to give out. People stared as she passed, sensing panic, danger, fear, but no one dared step in. She pressed the phone to her ear. "Please, Lorenzo." Her voice broke as she spoke. "Pick up." Just this once. Behind her, two men in black suits pushed through the crowd, searching. She ducked between fruit stalls, slipping through narrow paths, hiding behind crates stacked higher than her shoulders. Her heart hammered against her ribs, begging to break free. She called again. "Ring! Ring! Ring!" No answer. She swallowed back tears, forcing her voice to steady. "Lorenzo, if you hear this, please. I need you. They found me." Her hand shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. But she kept calling, because he was the only person she trusted. The only person she had ever trusted. "I." On the rooftop, Lorenzo didn't hear a word of it. He kissed Bianca. No hesitation. No guilt. No thought of the woman who once carried him through nights when he couldn't even carry himself. Bianca pulled back slightly, her smile coy. "See? Much better." He chuckled. "You always demand attention, and you always give it," she whispered. The waiter approached, placing 2 iced coffees on the table. "Anything else?" Just as he turned, the waiter's tray clipped the corner of the table, and Lorenzo's phone slid off and hit the floor. The sound was sharp, metallic. Lorenzo bent down, picking up the phone, brushing dust from its screen. The screen lit up again. Elena. Calling. Bianca raised an eyebrow. "Persistent little thing, isn't she?" Lorenzo sighed, annoyed. "She'll stop." But even as he said it, something cold slipped through his chest. A feeling he hadn't felt in years. Worry. He turned the phone over in his hand. Hesitating, his thumb hovered over the screen. Bianca noticed. Her smile thinned. "Don't tell me you're actually thinking about answering." Lorenzo looked at her, masking his unease. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was the 22nd missed call. Still, pride won. Ego won. The Mafia boss in him refused to look weak, even to himself. He placed the phone back on the table, face down again, ignored again. Across the market, Elena pressed herself against a wall, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her hand gripped her phone as though it were the last piece of hope she had left. She whispered another message, her voice shaking violently. "Lorenzo, please. This might be the last time I can call. I don't know what they'll do if they catch me. Please, just answer." Footsteps echoed, closer, heavier. Her eyes widened. She turned and ran. The men spotted her, shouting orders, pushing people aside as they sprinted after her. A vendor yelled as they knocked over his cart, oranges rolling across the ground like scattered marbles. Elena's feet pounded against the pavement. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred. But she kept running, and she kept calling him, because she believed he would answer. He always did. He had to. Back at the rooftop cafe, Bianca was pouring sugar into her drink when she spoke casually. "You know she's in love with you, right?" Lorenzo froze. Bianca smiled without looking up. "Women don't call like that unless they're desperate for attention." He forced a laugh. "Elena? She's just complicated." "Complicated," Bianca repeated mockingly, stirring her drink. "Or convenient." His jaw tightened, and he didn't answer. Another vibration. Another call. Bianca leaned back, crossing her legs elegantly. "Ignore her. Give me your attention." Lorenzo looked at her, then at the phone, then at the skyline. He had a choice, and he made the wrong one. He slid the phone deeper into his pocket and leaned closer to Bianca with a smirk that hid the storm building inside him. Bianca giggled, satisfied. The rooftop was filled again with sunlight and peace. Peace that felt unreal. Wrong. Out of place. Because somewhere miles away, Elena's run came to an end. She stumbled behind an alley, collapsing behind rusted trash bins. Her breaths were sharp, desperate, every inhale painful. Her fingers were slippery with sweat as she pressed the phone button one last time. "Ring! Ring! Ring!" Her voice was barely a whisper now. "Lorenzo, please, I don't know how long I can run." A shadow shifted across the ground. Her eyes widened in terror. She slowly looked up. A tall man in a black suit stood in the alleyway entrance. His shadow swallowed her completely. "No, no," she choked out, scrambling backward. The man cracked his knuckles, stepping closer. Elena tried to stand. Her leg gave out. She winced in pain. Her phone slipped from her hand. It hit the ground. The call ended on its own. The man smirked, and Elena's scream echoed through the narrow alleyway. Back on the rooftop, Lorenzo finally pulled out his phone again. A moment of quiet. A flicker of hesitation. A sudden heaviness in his chest. One missed call. Then 8. Then 21. Then 22. And one unread voice message. His heart thudded. Bianca noticed the sudden change in his expression. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer. Instead, his thumb hovered over the voice message icon. And just before he tapped it, the afternoon sun hung high in the sky, glowing bright and warm. But Elena felt none of its comfort. The world around her was loud, the marketplace overflowing with voices, chatter, footsteps, yet everything inside her felt muted, distant, fading. Her lungs burned. Her legs trembled. Her heartbeat felt like it was fighting its way out of her chest. She pressed her back against a peeling brick wall, clutching her wounded arm where blood had started to soak through her sleeve. Her fingers trembled so hard she could barely keep hold of her phone. She whispered to herself, "Come on. Just breathe, breathe." But breathing felt like drowning. She scanned the crowd from the narrow gap between two stalls. Families laughed, vendors called out prices, children pulled their mothers toward candy stands. The world was calm, normal, alive. Yet somewhere behind that normal life, death was chasing her. She could hear the men again. Heavy footsteps. Sharp voices. "Find her. She can't have gone far." Spread out. Her pulse spiked. She ducked lower, hiding behind a stack of cardboard boxes. Her vision blurred for a moment, and she leaned forward, clutching her head. Her thoughts were spiraling. How did it all come to this? Why did she take the envelope? Why did she think she could outrun them? Why did she trust Lorenzo with her life? Again. She closed her eyes, remembering the morning that changed everything. It had started like any normal day. Elena arrived at the small storage office where she worked as a clerk for one of the city's shipping companies, a company secretly tied to Lorenzo's empire. She wasn't officially part of his world, but she was close enough to know when something felt wrong. And that morning, something felt very wrong. She overheard whispers in the adjacent room, men speaking fast, low, angry. Tonight's the night. He has no idea we're coming. We take him down before sunrise. Her blood froze. Their voices were familiar. They worked for Lorenzo, but they weren't loyal. They were planning a betrayal. Her heart raced as she pressed her ear closer to the door. And once we get the documents back from Elena, he'll have no defense. Her breath caught. They were already watching her. Without thinking, she grabbed the envelope they were talking about, the one she had processed earlier, and ran. She didn't even know what was inside. She didn't care. She only knew it was the key to saving Lorenzo. She told herself she'd hand it to him safely. She told herself he'd listen. She told herself he'd be grateful. But now, hours later, she wasn't even sure he cared enough to answer the phone. Elena snapped back to the present as a hand slammed onto the boxes she hid behind. Her breath stopped. A man's voice growled, "Check the other side." Footsteps moved away. She exhaled shackily. Her phone buzzed weakly in her hand. She tried calling again. Ring! 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 Voicemail. Tears welled in her eyes. "Lorenzo, please," she whispered, voice cracking. "I don't know how much time I have left." She pressed her forehead to her knees, trying not to completely fall apart. Why isn't he answering? Why today? Why now, when she needed him more than she ever had before? She forced herself to move, pushing the boxes gently aside to peek into the crowd again. Two men in suits stood at the far end of the market. One pointed aggressively toward the fruit stalls. The other shouted toward the shopkeepers. She knew they were closing in. She had to keep moving. She pulled herself up using the wall for support, biting back a cry as pain shot through her arm. She staggered forward, weaving into the flow of people, keeping her head low, her hair covering her face. Her legs shook with every step, but fear kept her moving. Fear of what they'd do if they caught her. Fear of what Lorenzo didn't know. Fear of dying without him ever hearing her voice one last time. Yagui. She slipped into a narrow street behind the marketplace, breathing heavily. The buildings here were older, windows barred, walls cracked. Laundry hung above her on strings, swaying gently in the wind. She leaned against the wall again, fighting the dizziness crashing through her skull. Minutes passed. She wasn't sure how many. Each one felt like a lifetime. She replayed Lorenzo's last words to her in her memory. "You worry too much, Elena. You're too emotional. Nothing will happen to me." He always said the same lines, always brushed her concerns away. But she cared anyway. And now she was paying for it. She slid down until she sat on the ground, knees pulled close, hands shaking uncontrollably. "Lorenzo," she whispered, voice breaking. "I'm scared." Her phone buzzed again in her hand. Hope flared in her chest like a spark in darkness. She looked down, but it wasn't Lorenzo. It was just a low battery warning. Her heart sank. She held the phone close to her chest, as if that could somehow protect her. A shadow passed over her. She looked up, startled, only to see a little girl staring at her curiously from a doorway. The girl tilted her head, as if trying to understand why the stranger was crying. Before Elena could speak, a woman stepped out and pulled the girl inside protectively, shutting the door. Elena was alone again. Completely alone. Oh. A sudden noise made her jump. A crash, metal hitting concrete. She turned sharply. Two of the men had entered the narrow street. Their eyes scanned the area, searching for any sign of her. Elena's breath hitched. "Not here. Not now. Please, please." She forced herself up again, stumbling forward, moving deeper into the maze of alleys. Her legs screamed in protest, but she pushed through the pain. The men followed. Footsteps echoed sharply behind her. Her pace picked up. Their footsteps quickened. Elena darted into an open-air laundry courtyard, weaving between drying clothes, hoping to lose them in the fabric maze. A sheet brushed her face. A shirt tangled around her arm. A towel knocked her off balance. She grabbed the first door she saw and pulled. Locked. She moved to the next. Locked. Another. Locked. Her breath was turning into sobs. "Please, please open," she whispered, knocking weakly. No one answered. She turned just in time to see one of the men appear at the courtyard entrance. He saw her. Their eyes locked. He smirked. Elena ran. She sprinted through the laundry courtyard, ducking through a gap in the fence, cutting her arm on the wire. She pushed forward, ignoring the stinging pain, stumbling onto another street. Her vision pulsed. Her chest burned. Her legs felt like they might collapse with every step. She reached a small pedestrian bridge overlooking the river. Sunlight glimmered on the water, beautiful and mocking. She leaned on the railing, desperate for air. Her body was breaking down. But she dialed Lorenzo again. Ring, ring, ring. Her voice came out as a whisper, barely audible. "Please pick up, Lorenzo. I'm losing time." A painful ache spread through her stomach. She pressed a hand against it, feeling her strength slipping away little by little. She glanced down at the envelope she had tucked into her jacket earlier. The edges were bent. The seal was worn, but she still held onto it tightly. This envelope was the reason she was being hunted, and the only thing that could save Lorenzo. If she failed to deliver it, he wouldn't live long either. The thought terrified her more than her own death. A sudden shout broke through the air. "There she is!" Elena gasped. Two men raced toward her, fast, furious, determined. Her heart stopped. Her breath froze. She turned and ran off the bridge, sprinting into the next street. Her legs felt hollow, her lungs scraped raw, her throat burning from crying and calling and pleading for help that never came. Her phone slipped in her hand. She grabbed it again, but not tightly enough. It fell, clattered on the pavement. She reached down, a hand slammed onto her wrist. She screamed. Her finger grazed the screen, hitting a button accidentally. A small light flashed. Voice message sent. The man yanked her to her feet. Elena's eyes filled with tears, fear, pain, and heartbreak all crashing together. She didn't know if Lorenzo would ever hear her final message. She didn't know if she'd live long enough to send another one. The man dragged her toward a dark van parked nearby. Her scream echoed through the street, and everything went silent. The rooftop cafe had grown quiet. The afternoon sun was still bright, but something inside Lorenzo had dimmed. The lively energy around him softened into a distant blur. The clinking of glasses, the soft chatter, the playful laugh of Bianca sitting across from him. None of it reached him anymore, because all he could see were the 22 missed calls glowing on his phone screen. Bianca leaned forward, folding her manicured fingers under her chin. "You're scaring me with that look," she said lightly. "You're not usually this serious." But Lorenzo barely heard her. His thumb hovered over the notification icon. His chest felt heavier than it had in years, a strange, unfamiliar weight. Fear? Guilt? Both? He didn't want to name it. He tapped the screen. The missed calls expanded. Elena, 22 missed calls. One voicemail. One voice message. His throat tightened. Bianca watched him closely. "Don't tell me she's gotten into trouble again," she said, rolling her eyes. "She always exaggerates." "Stop," Lorenzo muttered sharply. Her eyes widened, but he didn't look at her again. Instead, he hit play on the voice message. A few seconds of silence. Elena's voice burst through the speaker, broken, breathless, frantic. "Lorenzo, please, I need you. They're after me. I don't know how long I can run. I found something. Something important. It's about you. Please pick up. Please." A scream. A thud. Footsteps. Stag. Then, silence. Lorenzo froze. Bianca's smile faded instantly. What was that? For the first time in a long time, Lorenzo didn't have an answer. His fingers tightened around the phone. His pulse pounded in his throat. His ears roaring with panic, he refused to show. He replayed the message. He needed to hear it again. He needed to make sure he hadn't imagined the fear in her voice. The pain, the desperation, the sound of someone struggling to breathe. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the table. Bianca reached out to steady him, confused and alarmed. "Lorenzo, what happened? Talk to me." But he was already moving. He didn't know where he was going yet. He only knew he needed to move. Now, he didn't answer Bianca. He didn't look back. He stormed down the cafe stairs, through the hotel lobby, out into the blinding daylight. His men, who always waited nearby, straightened when they saw him. "Boss," one asked quietly. "Car," Lorenzo ordered. His voice was low, steady, but beneath it ran a fury that made his men hurry faster. He slid into the back seat, gripping his phone like it was the only lifeline he had left. He replayed the audio again and again. Each time, the sound of Elena's trembling voice burrowed deeper into his chest. Why hadn't he answered? Why hadn't he listened? Why had he pushed her away so easily? He swallowed hard. "Find Elena," he ordered. "Now." The car sped down the street. The city felt colder now, even under the bright sunlight. Lorenzo stared out the window, his eyes searching every shadow, every corner, as though she might appear. His mind wouldn't stop replaying her words. "Please pick up. I don't know how long I can run. It's about you." Elena didn't lie. She didn't exaggerate danger. She didn't call unless something was truly wrong. And he had ignored her. Ignored her while kissing someone else. He pressed his fingers against his forehead, cursing himself silently. He hated this feeling. Vulnerability. Regret. It was foreign to him, something he had long buried inside walls of iron and arrogance. He thought Elena would always be there, always waiting, always loyal. He never imagined a world where her voice would sound so broken, so close to disappearing forever. The car screeched to a stop in front of the marketplace. People bustling, vendors shouting, children running, life happening everywhere. But she was nowhere. Lorenzo stepped out, scanning the crowd with sharp, desperate eyes. "Spread out," he ordered. "Ask everyone if they saw her." His men moved instantly. Lorenzo pushed through the crowd, showing Elena's picture to shopkeepers and vendors. "A woman, this woman. Did you see her? She was running, injured. Did she come this way? Please, tell me you saw her." People hesitated, intimidated by him, but the fear in his voice made them talk. "Yes, sir, I saw her," a fruit seller said. "She looked hurt," a woman added. "She was running that way," a teenager pointed. Each clue tightened a noose around Lorenzo's heart. He followed their directions, moving deeper into the market, toward the alleyways where shadows formed even under daylight. Something on the ground caught his eye, a smear of blood on concrete. His chest clenched. He crouched down, touching it lightly, his fingertips trembling. "Boss!" a young boy shouted from behind him. Lorenzo turned sharply. The boy, no older than 10, held out a crumpled envelope. "She dropped this," he said. "The lady who was hurt." Lorenzo's breath hitched. He took the envelope. His hands shook as he flipped it open. Inside were documents, photos, lists, names, a full map of an attack on his empire. They were planning to destroy him tonight, and Elena had taken the evidence. To protect him, he closed his eyes, a sharp, painful realization cutting through him. She didn't call to save herself. She called to save him, and he hadn't listened. He swallowed hard, his jaw tightening until it ached. He whispered, barely audible, "Elena, what have you gotten yourself into?" He stood abruptly, shoving the envelope into his jacket. His voice roared through the street. "Find her. N.O.W." His men spread out like wolves. Lorenzo walked with purpose, fury building in his every step. But then, a sound tore through the air. A scream. High-pitched. Terrified. Familiar. Lorenzo's blood turned to ice. It came from somewhere behind the buildings, deep inside the alleys that branched like dark veins from the marketplace. He ran. He didn't think. He didn't breathe. He didn't care who saw him. The mafia boss sprinting through the streets like a desperate man chasing his own soul. He turned a corner sharply. Another scream, cut off suddenly. He pushed faster, his heart crashing in his chest. He reached the alley entrance. Empty. No Elena. No men. Only a faint mark on the ground, a tire trail from a van that had sped away moments ago. Lorenzo stepped forward slowly, the world around him tilting, losing color. She was gone. Taken. Because he didn't answer her call. His hands clenched into fists, knuckles white. This wasn't fear anymore. It was rage. Cold. Dangerous. He raised his head, eyes burning with something violent and unrecognizable. Find that van, he growled to his men. If we don't, she dies. The sunlight hit his face as he stepped back into the open street, but he didn't feel the warmth, only the storm rising inside him. The night felt colder than usual, as if the city itself sensed something terrible was about to unfold. Lorenzo stepped out of the luxury club, adjusting his suit jacket as the neon lights washed his face in red and blue. It should have been a normal night for him. Business deals, drinks, dangerous promises whispered in crowded rooms. Instead, he walked out with his mind heavy, not with guilt, not with regret, but with irritation. He had tried calling Elena. Again and again, the call went straight to voicemail. He didn't realize that the message she sent him, hours earlier, was the one message that could have changed everything. He didn't know her silence wasn't stubbornness. It was danger closing in around her. Lorenzo made his way down the alley behind the club where his right-hand man, Marco, was waiting beside a black SUV. Marco's face was tense, eyes scanning the alley. "Boss," he said quietly, "we have a situation." Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. "When don't we?" Marco hesitated. "This one is different." Lorenzo stopped. His expression sharpened. "What do you mean, different?" Marco opened the SUV door, revealing a small black envelope lying on the seat. No name, no seal, just a quiet, deadly simplicity. It was left at the back door of the club. "Addressed to you." Lorenzo frowned. "Who delivered it?" Marco's jaw tightened. "That's the problem. No cameras caught it. No one saw anything." Lorenzo took the envelope slowly. The paper felt rough, like something handmade, old, out of place. He slid a finger under the flap and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A symbol was drawn in dark ink. He froze. It was a circle, split in half by a jagged line, a mark he hadn't seen in years. Marco saw the color drain from his face. "You recognize it?" Lorenzo nodded once, voice low. "Black Serpent Syndicate." Marco inhaled sharply. "Boss, they were wiped out years ago. You ended their operations yourself." Lorenzo's eyes stayed glued to the symbol. "No," he whispered. "I ended some of them." He turned the paper over, and that's when everything inside him went still. There was a message, written in a rushed, uneven hand. "You took everything from us. Now we'll take what you love most. She has something that belongs to us." Marco stepped forward, eyes widening. "G? Boss, who is G?" Lorenzo's breath caught for a split second. "Elena." His heart gave one strong, painful thud. He didn't show emotion, not in public, not to his men, not even to himself most days. But right now, fear slid into his chest like a knife. Before he could answer, Marco's phone buzzed violently. He checked it, his eyes narrowing. "Boss, we just intercepted a communication from the Black Serpent Network. They're moving something tonight. Something big." Lorenzo's voice sharpened. "What location?" Marco swallowed. "That's the strange part. It mentions her street." And just like that, everything around Lorenzo seemed to tilt. The neon lights, the distant noise, the cold air, they all felt far away. He grabbed Marco's shoulder. "Get the car." "No." Marco rushed around to the driver's seat, but as Lorenzo bent to step into the SUV, a figure stepped from the shadows. A woman, tall, dressed in a dark coat, her face hidden under a hood. Her heels clicked softly on the concrete. She raised one hand, holding a phone. A video was playing. Lorenzo stiffened. Elena, tied to a chair, her head hanging forward, hair covering her face, her breathing shallow. Lorenzo moved without thinking, fury rising inside him like a storm. "What the hell is this?" he growled. The woman's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "A message." Marco reached for his gun, but she lifted her hand, and he froze, not because of fear, but because a small red laser dot appeared on his forehead. "Sniper." She smiled slightly. "Let's not turn this into a messy night." Lorenzo's hands clenched. "Where is she?" The woman tilted her head. "You'll find out soon enough." She tucked the phone into her coat and stepped closer, her perfume drifting through the cold air, a scent strange and sweet, like a flower blooming in a graveyard. "You brought this on yourself, Lorenzo," she whispered. "Your sins have come home." Lorenzo's jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "What do you want?" Her lips curved into a slow, satisfied smile. "Something Elena took from us." He shook his head. "She didn't take anything." "Oh, she did," the woman said quietly. "And she paid the price for it." Lorenzo's eyes darkened. "What did you do to her?" The woman leaned in close enough for him to see the cruel amusement in her eyes. "Nothing," she whispered. "Yet." She stepped back, slipping a small silver USB drive into his hand. "She begged us to let her send you a message," she said. "And you didn't read it." Lorenzo froze, completely. His chest tightened. The woman continued, her voice low and venomous. "She called you while you were busy with the other woman." Silence hit Lorenzo like a truck. A cold, nauseating silence. The woman took another step backward. "If you want to save her, Lorenzo, you have exactly 6 hours." Marco swore under his breath. 6 hours for what? But the woman only smiled. A cold, merciless smile. And then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the dark alley as smoothly as smoke. Lorenzo stared down at the USB in his hand. His pulse thundered in his ears. Marco spoke carefully. "Boss, what's on that drive?" Lorenzo's voice was barely above a whisper. "Her last message." Marco's eyes widened. "The one you didn't read?" Lorenzo closed his fist around the drive. Guilt hit him hard, raw, sharp, and sudden. He had ignored her message, ignored her call. And now the woman he cared for more than he ever admitted was somewhere out there, running out of time. He got into the SUV, voice low and deadly. "Drive!" Marco started the engine. "Where to?" Lorenzo stared straight ahead, the weight of the envelope, the message, the video, all crushing down on him. "To find out exactly." His voice trembled, but only for a second. "What she tried to tell me." Marco nodded and hit the gas. The SUV roared forward into the night. But as they turned onto the main road, another vehicle pulled out behind them. Silent, headlights off, following, watching, waiting. And Lorenzo had no idea that the deadliest part of the night hadn't even started yet. The SUV sped through the sleeping city, slicing through empty streets and scattered pools of lamplight. Inside, the air was thick, heavy with fear, anger, and something Lorenzo rarely allowed himself to feel: regret. Marco drove fast, but even he kept glancing at the rearview mirror. That black car behind us. Still there. Lorenzo didn't look back. "I know." He held the small silver USB drive in his hand so tightly that the metal edges pressed into his skin. Her last message. He didn't need to plug it in. He didn't need to see the file. He already felt the weight of it crushing him. Elena had been calling him, messaging him, begging for his attention. And he had been too busy kissing another woman, drowned in alcohol and ego, brushing Elena aside like she meant nothing. Every second he ignored her was a second closer to danger she faced alone. Lorenzo closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe. Marco kept glancing back. That car is still following. No headlights. No plates visible. "Boss, this is not random." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "Lose them." Marco nodded and spun the wheel sharply, turning into a narrower side road leading toward the old industrial district. The sudden change of direction made the tires screech. The black car followed instantly. Lorenzo leaned forward, voice low. "They're her people." Marco swallowed. "The black serpent? Who else?" Lorenzo muttered. Marco pressed the accelerator harder. "I thought we had more time." Lorenzo shook his head. "We don't." The alley lights flickered above them as they sped past, shadows dancing across Lorenzo's face. Finally, he pulled his phone out and connected the USB drive with a small adapter. The screen lit up. There was only one file. A voice message. Elena's voice. Lorenzo felt his heart twist inside him. He hesitated for 1 second, then pressed play. Elena's voice filled the SUV. She sounded breathless, scared, trying to stay calm. "Lorenzo, if you see this message, please listen. Don't hang up. Don't ignore this." Lorenzo sucked in a shaky breath. Marco whispered, "Boss." But Lorenzo raised a hand to silence him. I don't have much time," Elena continued. "They found me. I think they followed me from the cafe. I shouldn't have taken the file. I shouldn't have tried to fix anything alone." Her voice cracked. "I just thought, if I gathered proof, if I brought it to you, maybe you'd finally believe me." Lorenzo's stomach dropped. "Proof? About what?" "Lorenzo, someone in your circle betrayed you." The words felt like a punch to the chest. "They framed you for the Serpent Massacre years ago. They were never supposed to come after me. But I found something they're terrified you'll see." Elena breathed shackily, the sound muffled as if she kept glancing behind her. "I know you're angry with me. I know you think I'm dramatic or overprotective, but I never lied to you. Not once." A faint whimper slipped through the speaker. She was crying silently while recording. "Please, please pick up your phone. I need you. I don't know if I can run anymore." Lorenzo's entire body shivered with rage and helplessness. "She tried to warn me," he whispered, voice cracking. The message continued. "If they take me, they'll force you into their trap. Don't fall for it. Don't trust anyone. Not even the people closest to you. Not even." Sudden noise burst into the recording. A crash. A scream. A struggle. "Elena?" Lorenzo barked at the screen, even though he knew she couldn't answer. A man's voice appeared faintly in the background, cold and mocking. "Did you really think he'd save you?" Elena's voice came back, higher, terrified. "Lorenzo, please. They're taking me." "Don't. Don't let them." The recording cut abruptly. The SUV filled with silence so thick it suffocated. Marco slowed the car. "Boss, this was her last call. Before they took her." Lorenzo stared at the phone screen, his chest burning. He wanted to destroy everything. The steering wheel, the dashboard, the world itself. Because while she was running for her life, he was touching another woman's lips. The kind of regret that carved scars ripped through him. Marco glanced at him, uneasy. "Boss, are you okay?" Lorenzo laughed, a cold, broken sound. "Okay? I failed her. Again." He looked down at the USB drive. "She trusted me with something important. Something dangerous." Marco nodded slowly. "And they're willing to kill her for it." Lorenzo leaned back, swallowed hard, and whispered, "I don't care about the file. I don't care about the truth. I just want her alive." Before Marco could reply, headlights flashed violently behind them. The black car sped forward. "They're coming!" Marco shouted. The SUV jerked forward as Marco stepped on the gas. They shot down the dark road, weaving between old factory buildings. The black car kept closing in. Lorenzo looked out the window. "They're forcing us toward the docks." Marco swore. "That's a kill zone." Lorenzo grabbed his gun. "Then we don't go to the docks." He pointed at a narrow ramp leading to an unfinished flyover. Marco's eyes widened. "That road isn't complete." "It's our only shot," Lorenzo snapped. Marco turned sharply, the SUV bouncing as it hit the uneven ramp. The unfinished road stretched ahead, broken concrete, missing guardrails, steel rods sticking out like rusted bones. The black car followed without hesitation. Marco gritted his teeth. They're not backing off. Lorenzo cocked his gun. They don't need to. They want to delay us. Every minute counts. He stared out into the night sky. Dark, endless, suffocating. Elena is somewhere out there, he said quietly, praying that I come. Marco nodded. And we will. But before they could speed up, a huge construction barrier suddenly appeared at the end of the path. Marco's eyes widened. No, no, no. He slammed the brakes. The SUV swerved, skidding violently across the concrete. The black car behind them didn't brake. It rammed into their rear with crushing force. The SUV jerked forward, metal screeching. Lorenzo slammed into the dashboard. Marco lost his grip on the wheel. The barrier rushed closer, and the SUV stopped with a brutal jolt, inches away from the drop. Dust filled the air. Lorenzo groaned, pressing a hand to his head. Marco coughed. Boss, you okay? Yeah, Lorenzo muttered. But they won't stop. Slow footsteps echoed behind the SUV. The black car's doors opened. Shadowy figures stepped out, slow, confident, dangerous. Lorenzo raised his gun. Marco, he whispered, get ready. Marco lifted his weapon with shaky hands. Boss, there are 4 of them. Lorenzo smiled coldly. Good. I'm in a bad mood. One of the figures stepped forward. A tall man dressed in all black, wearing a serpent emblem on his sleeve. His voice echoed through the night. Lorenzo Romano. Lorenzo didn't lower his gun. You know my name. Good saves time. The man smirked. You're not supposed to die tonight. That's comforting, Marco muttered. The man continued. But you are supposed to surrender the item Elena stole. Lorenzo felt rage ignite inside him. She didn't steal anything. Oh, the man replied calmly. Then why did she run? That single sentence cut Lorenzo deeper than any bullet. The man stepped closer. She begged us to let her send you a message. She truly believed you would come for her. Lorenzo's grip tightened. Where is she? The man shrugged lightly. That depends on your choices tonight. Lorenzo lifted his gun higher. Tell me where she is, he growled, or I'll make choices you won't walk away from. The man smiled. Then I guess we're done talking. He snapped his fingers. The remaining men raised their guns. Lorenzo whispered to Marco, 3 seconds. Then jump behind the concrete slab on the right. Marco nodded, whispering shackily, ready. Lorenzo inhaled deeply. He wasn't thinking about himself, not even about the gun pointed at him. He was thinking of Elena, terrified, alone, somewhere in the darkness, and her last call echoing through his mind. This time, he whispered under his breath, I won't fail you. Then, a gunshot cracked the night, and everything exploded into chaos.